Hi, Dr. Regan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
That's one of the things that I think is important is, self-reflection. It's something that I've really focused on as you get older, Regan, you'll start to realize this. You start looking back and you start saying, wow, I wish I'd have known that 10 years ago. But it's not a negative. It's I wish I'd have known it 10 years ago, but I do know it now. And so if I'm not quitting, if I'm not, giving up on life, then it's always good. At some point, imagine if you were 25 saying, I wish I'd have known this 10 years ago, or
Right.
30, I wish I'd known this 10 years ago, or 55 or 65, so if you're always self-reflecting and always looking back, I think that's important.
Welcome to the Everyday Practices Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take right into your own dental practice. If you're ready to elevate patient care and produce results that are anything but ordinary, buckle up and listen in.
Welcome to a special cross-collaboration podcast episode of The Productive Dentist with Dr. Bruce B. Baird and Everyday Practices Dental Podcast with Regan Robertson. Self-reflection can be a powerful aid in our journey or a crutch that can bury us in that victim mindset. Bruce and I have joined forces for this special two-part episode to provide insight on how you can use your past experiences to fuel your future success. Let's stay in that abundant mindset and get you the best 2024 you can possibly achieve. We also dive into the new features offered at the PDA Productivity Workshop and the all-new Seller Readiness Summit, and even provide you with some of our strategies that you can implement to achieve your goals. This is an action-packed two-part series just for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. This is your host, Regan Robertson, here with a very special co-host. Chad Johnson is busy dentisting right now at this moment. And I have our co-founder, Dr. Bruce B. Baird, also host of the award-winning podcast, The Productive Dentist Podcast. Bruce, welcome to our show.
Oh man, I'm so excited to be on here. I am super pumped.
Tell me now, we were just talking off air, you'll probably get it as a soundbite, about what it means to be super pumped. And that's a show on Netflix that is the story of Uber.
Yeah, it's the Uber story. And it's apparently I say I'm pumped a lot because somebody said, you say that all the time. So now I'm super pumped. I'm not just pumped. I am super pumped. So yeah, it's a great show on Netflix. And I don't know. It's kind of the corporate world and all of the stuff that goes on. So I found it to be really interesting and a lot of fun to watch. And it's one of those shows where, I think it's 8 episodes or maybe 10, but you go through it like in one afternoon because you don't want to quit watching. So,
you just want to keep hitting the next button. I know how that feels. Chad and I just wrapped up a few weeks ago reading the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And that I got our CEO, Victoria Peterson, reading that book as well. It talks about private equity. And even though it's a fairly old book and it's referencing private equity back from, the early 2000s, it's very relevant. And it'll be really interesting to see, even though it's not dentistry or even healthcare, I'm sure you were able to draw a lot of parallels with Uber and what's going on with Uber and their journey. And I'm assuming their foray into public or private equity as well.
Yeah, it's really it's a fun watch. So it's one of those things where, you pick up stuff if you're living it, which we are right now through the Lampa Dental Group and through some of the stuff that we've done, even going back as far as compassionate finance and working with AKKR and a lot of things like that. I had no clue what I was doing, but to watch this show, it kind of explained it to me. You know, 3 years after the fact of what it was like. So I lived it, but now I get to see it in a different light. So it's really cool. Cool story.
I wonder if it's by design sometimes that we have to go through the school of hard knocks. We hired a chief human resources officer, Dr. Adrienne Reynolds, as you know, as you work with her as well. And some of the tools that she's given me as a leader in the organization, I have found myself saying what PDA doctors have reflected to me over the many years, which is, oh my gosh, if I'd only known this 10 years ago,
Right.
man, I would have been a better leader 10 years ago had I had these tools.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is important is, self-reflection. It's something that I've really focused on as you get older, Reagan, you'll start to realize this. You start looking back and you start saying, wow, I wish I'd have known that 10 years ago. But it's not a negative. It's I wish I'd have known it 10 years ago, but I do know it now. And so if I'm not quitting, if I'm not, giving up on life, then it's always good. At some point, imagine if you were 25 saying, I wish I'd have known this 10 years ago, or 30. I wish I'd known this 10 years ago, or 55 or 65, So if you're always self-reflecting and always looking back, I think that's important. I think how did I get to where I'm at today? Well, I'd like to get, I'd like to reevaluate or evaluate, not reevaluate, because you can't do that. But I'd like to evaluate how I got here and what are the things I did that were successful, and maybe what are the things I did that might have hindered the path a little bit along the way. So, yeah, that's just me.
Well, we do what we can until we know better. And when we know better, we do better. I don't remember whose quote, that came from, but I think about that often. I explain it to my children. First time parent is what I say.
I love it. I do. Always looking, always evaluating, what we're doing and how we did it, and could I have done it better? Because next time I do it, I'd like to be, look back on the experience that I had, and I think it's important in dentistry. It's important in life. It's important across the board. So I've become, the older you get, you really start to self-reflect, and I think it's very valuable.
One of my favorite things about you in particular, and we've talked about this before, is your ability to use self-reflection, but also combine it with the innovation of the future. I find your eyes are firmly fixated on the future and what's coming down the pike. And one of the requests that we've had over the years in running the productivity workshop is what's next? What's next? And you have been through an awful lot in the past 6 years that have given you the power to help people be self-reflective, perhaps before they need to be self-reflected. And have translated that into, we've really exploded the workshop. It's not a workshop anymore. It's a conference. It has multiple events running at one time. How do you feel about the new conference that PDA has put together for 2024?
Well, I have to say I'm super pumped because, we were addressing increasing productivity through the productivity workshop, increasing your production per hour and reducing stress and doing all those things. But we really weren't reflecting on practice value, the true value of a business, and the way that the industry, private equity and everybody else looks at dentistry as a business. And we weren't really looking at EBITDA. I say the word EBITDA to dentists and they go, what's EBITDA? Because most of us, we don't live in that world. But to understand that if I can change my EBITDA by $100,000 in my business, that could equate to $5 million. and I never looked at it until, the last 5 to 10 years. But now with investment grade practices, that's one of our one of the conferences we're doing along with the productivity workshop, because you've been through the productivity workshop, you're a unicorn, you're producing at levels that no other dentists are producing. But now you have the opportunity to actually truly understand what value means in a dental practice. And it's not the kind of chairs you have, although I like having good equipment, I like having all that technology, but it's how do I run my business and what's the value of my business if someone outside of dentistry is looking at it, and which in turn means they may pay me for that later. Increasing my true value of my business, and that's what investment grade practice, the entire program is built to grow your value, and that's huge. You don't realize it because you don't know it, but it is huge. And focusing on something like that and growing, like I say, 100,000 could mean 5 million. And we've never thought of it that way.
There is nothing more heartbreaking than to witness somebody get to that stage where they're ready to transition or retire or whatever milestone it is in their life and have the oh no button of I didn't prepare.
Right. Oh my gosh. And I had sold my practice to Heartland back 8 years before I retired. Oh my gosh, if I knew what I do today, oh gosh, self-reflection, all the things that we talk about, I wish I knew then, and I didn't, and that's okay. But I want to share that with everybody else. That's kind of what our role is at PDA and investment grade practice and everything else is, we see people go through lots of different issues, and if we can find ways to soften the landing, or to because it is sad. Somebody works 40 years in a business, 35 years in a business, and they've made a great living. They're making money on the go, and that's awesome. And they've lived a great lifestyle, but they retire and they have to retreat to a different lifestyle. Only 5% of dentists can retire at their existing level. And gosh, that just breaks my heart. It really does, because you should enjoy the fruits of your labor, and able to do that, and the ability to do that. You have to do a little bit of planning ahead of time. You have to plan for building an investment grade practice, one that other people would see value in. And I joke a little bit. I thought, and we build those, but when I retired, or put away the handpiece, I haven't retired, but when I put down the handpiece, I thought Granbury Dental Center would implode, because my production, I was 50% of the production in the office. I thought the whole place would just fall apart.
I remember that. I remember you had some tentativeness, like you were going to bravely walk forward, but you did have those thoughts.
I was worried about all the team, Summer and Gay and Shannon and the whole team. I was worried because if I leave, they'll never be able to do it without me. But guess what? We built an investment grade practice. We had all the things in place, the systems, the technology, the team, which all of a sudden Jeff comes in, Dr. Buski, and he moves over into my role as the head producer, and all of a sudden his productivity doubles. Literally doubled overnight. And I'm like, wow. And it was really good for me to see that, because we're all replaceable, but we're not replaceable if we haven't built a great business. And so we can sell that business to somebody else and they don't do as well as we did. Well, that's not the kind of business I want to sell. I want to leave that legacy practice to the next person so that they can take care of that legacy practice and they can grow it. And so we haven't missed a beat at Granbury Dental Center. Matter of fact, I'm going up to get my teeth cleaned there in a couple hours. So it's exciting that it still is what I planned for it to be, even though I'm not there, if that makes any sense.
It makes all the sense. And I know that we're not on video right now. So you can't see me beaming, audience, but to hear your message, Bruce, of being the messenger and really helping people prepare so that their school of hard knocks isn't quite as hard is incredible. And so there are new components to the PDA workshop. So right now in March, I think it's 14th to the 16th for 2024, we are going to have the productivity workshop, which has two new speakers that are going to be part of that package. Then we have the investment grade summit. And in order to even gain access to the workshop 2.0, if it were, you have to have gone through the productivity workshop. So you have to understand the philosophy of what it means to be productive. And that's an incredible lineup specifically for PDA clients and those that have been through the workshop. Then we have another event concurrently running called the Seller Readiness Summit. And that's if you're reaching that line and say you're, anywhere from, oh no, I have to transition soon to maybe 5 or even 10 years out, but you want to plan and you've never been to PDA before, we've got you covered as well. So there are 3 concurrent workshops running.
That's exciting.
It's extremely exciting. I love how well we're going to be able to serve people regardless of where they're at in their PDA journey or their own journey in their career. Let's talk about the workshop for a minute, since that is the flagship and that's what started all of this. We have 2 doctors, and you did mention, you said you're retired, which you're really not retired, but you hung up the handpiece. Well, we have productive doctors that are there that are practicing today, and we have 2 of them that are going to be speaking, as well as yourself, Dr. Maggie Augustine.
Yeah.
PDA faculty member. Let's talk about her for a second and her story. We both got to hear her for the first time in September when she debuted and kicked off the event for us.
Yeah. She breathes life into the program because she's dealt with issues. She's dealt with a lot, but she's come out on the other side. And those are the folks that we want to highlight. I mean, dentistry is not easy. It's, no one said it was going to be easy. But to bring people that have come out on the other side and have always focused on taking great care of the patient, but maybe didn't understand the ideal way of going about it. Not that there is an ideal, but to find ways to make life a little bit better, to take those little bits and to stack them on top of each other and to come out on the other side with, gosh, such grace. She's a powerhouse. But Maggie is, she's somebody, when you hear her speak, you will smile and have tears rolling down your cheeks at the same time, because you realize if she can do it, I can do it. And, I know people have looked at me and go, he can do it, I can do it, and that's part of what makes Productive Dentist Academy and all the programs we're doing makes them real to the people that are there, because they go, gosh, I went through that, and maybe I can learn from others. And so, and the people that come to the programs are people who want to learn. So it's not, I don't like going, I've never been on the barbecue and beer circuit, which is going to all the state meetings, and because people are there just to get CE credits. And I don't want that. I'm not going to go lecture and talk about, my life and how the things that were good and the things that were tough. And I'm not going to go do that in front of a bunch of people who are just punching a ticket.
No.
When you put the money down and say, I'm coming to the program, they're there to learn. And I love that. Now, I don't want to teach people that don't want to learn.
Bruce, what this reminds me of, since I've had the honor of attending other dental events, and I would definitely not disparage other dental events for bringing quality. But one of the things that's really tricky for an organization to do is to find a lineup of speakers that share the philosophy, the overall, maybe the operating system. So some of the conferences, it feels like you've got a Mac mouse plugged into a PC computer. They're not quite talking at the same thing. They're both really great individually, but maybe they don't work quite well together. And something that I just thought of, especially since I take so much every time you speak away from what you speak, just as my own as a speaker, I'm trying to learn how to be a better speaker. Both of you bring this level of authenticity that that means both of you have done a lot of inner work. You both have been great at self-reflecting, and you're both looking out on the horizons with an abundance mindset and an optimism. And I think that makes a beautiful pairing between what she's doing in practice today and how she's used the philosophy of being productive and what that means for her. But you two blend together so well. You both bring this amazing conversational quality and authenticity when you speak.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm honored to be mentioned in the same sentence with Maggie, because she is somebody who is I don't know. It's a very impressive, and I love hearing her. I love hearing her share her story and where she's at. Generational wealth. I mean, that's one of the things that she said. You know, no one ever told me I could have generational wealth with what I'm doing, and yeah, you can. You actually can. So
I believe her. I think her headline, what was it, like from $100 in the bank to generational wealth in 3 years, 5 years?
it was like 3 years.
3 years.
3 years going from $100 in the bank to generational wealth. And all it is, truthfully, is setting the stage or preparing the table for a great meal or a great business. You're preparing the table for that. And it honestly, it's not as difficult as many people might think. You know, if you do the right things over and over and over again, pretty soon you realize, oh my gosh, I have just created something that is awesome. And you didn't realize what you were creating when you started, but you finish, and not that you're ever finished. That's not a good
Yeah.
word. You reflect back and you go, wow, I can't believe we're here. And good grief, this is, this business that I've built can create generational wealth. But what's more important to me than the wealth is it's created a legacy type practice that will go on even far after I'm gone. When I'm gone, people will still be reaping the benefits of going into that practice and getting top-notch care, getting people that are on the same page, people that care more about you than the money. Because as we always say, the money always takes care of itself. When you take care of the people, the money takes care of itself. And so I don't, I've been one that's never really worried about money. I didn't have much growing up, but I never really worried about it. I always knew that I could create something or do something that would take care of me from a financial standpoint. So, but Maggie is, she's a winner. I mean, I like hanging out with winners. I really do.
Well, we have several more winners that are going to be at the workshop alone. Dr. Jackson Bean, was he at the first or was he later on? I can't remember. He feels like he's been part of the PDA community and definitely embodies what it means to be productive. He'll be speaking as well.
Yeah. Jackson's going to be talking. Jackson was at the first program. He was my associate. He was actually my student. He was my student at Baird. And he and about 3 other guys, and you have 130 students, and I'm a senior class. And he, at the end of every lecture that I did, he would come up front and ask questions. And he and his other buddies, and all of those guys have just far exceeded anyone's. I think they far exceeded their own expectations. But that's where a curious mind and realizing that I don't know everything. The people who don't know everything are the ones who become the most successful. Once they realize I don't know everything. But Jackson is one who has embodied. He worked in our practice for 4 years, went and opened up his own practice in Greenville, Texas. Amazing practitioner. He was a oh gosh, he was a productive dentist the day he got out of dental school. And you don't see that. You don't see that very often.
No.
Jackson is one who really embodied that. He's a great communicator. He enjoys being around people. He can make you feel comfortable at the drop of a hat. And guess what? If you can learn to do those things, then you can be a successful dentist. Now, I also have to say he does have phenomenal margins on his crowns, and the quality of his is amazing. Because there are some people who can communicate, and maybe they're not the best dentist in the world, but that's what
Yes.
backs off all of us that really love doing clinical dentistry is the guy down the street that you go, why are people lining up at his on their doorstep?
Oh man.
They make them feel great. And Jackson's one when he's speaking, you're going to want to listen because he's got real life experience over the last 24 years in practice. And I'm excited to hear him. I'm really excited to hear him talk because I'm going to learn something too. So I
Oh,
can
it's
get
going to be amazing. I heard you say, curious learner. I think what I see across the board with doctors that really are exceptional at being productive dentists and they care about the value of their business, they are curious learners with a grateful heart. And I
oh
see
God,
that
love
in
that.
Jackson. He just beams when you see him in person.
He does. I mean, he's a great friend, and it's just so gratifying watching his journey in dentistry. It's just been something that I'm like, wow, that I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something that just makes me smile ear to ear. So with Jackson, and we've got somebody else, Wade Kiefer, who's going to be there. And Wade, golly, what a story Wade is.
Oh, Dr. Kiefer, Koi's course facilitator,
Yes,
humble as the day is long. I cannot believe that he's doing our breakout session.
I know. I know. Wade's one of those guys. He's gone through the entire course curriculum. And interesting, he was in his, gosh, I don't even know how. Everybody that I look at is younger than I think they are. But Wade is had some medical problems. He literally had a heart problem,
Mhm.
and in the middle of his career, he has this heart problem, but he came out of that and continued his journey and learning and continued his journey of taking great care of people. And he is, one of the great things about Wade is he kind of embodies the John Coyce. John and I have been friends for, oh gosh, I don't know, over 30 years. And John's one of those guys that I listen to every time that I hear him speak. I learn something different. He's one of the guys that knows. Yeah, he knows so much about everything. I don't care if it's dentistry. I mean, he'll tell you, well, the reason these coffee beans from this part of the world is so good is because the pH in the soil is X, Y, Z.
Yes,
And
totally, Wade.
I'm like, do you ever sleep? I mean, do you live? But Wade is that way. He evaluates things. He's extremely intelligent, and he's personable, and he's somebody who you can actually ask questions and not feel. I remember asking a question to Pete Dawson years ago. I was at Pete's course, and Pete was he was the John Coyce of his era. And I asked Pete a question, and Pete wrote the forward to my book on implants back in '91. But Pete was one of those guys. If you asked a question that was kind of a little bit, you know, he would say, well, Bruce, if you would have read my book in chapter 3 on page 46, the answer is clearly there, but Wade is like, he's going to walk you through every step of the way. So, I'm honored to have such amazing dentists now.
God, have you been paying attention to Wade's smile designs too? I've been peeking on the practice's Facebook. Your smiles, Bruce, unbelievable. It feels, you're going to laugh at me for this, but when I saw Wade's, I thought of the statues in Italy, the fine craftsmen that did them. It is so beautiful. The
It is.
smiles. I cannot tell that they are works of synthetic art. That they are not actual teeth.
I know.
Absolutely stunning.
No, and he, but to get to watch him grow over the last 15 years, and that's the people we want to put in front of
Yeah.
our docs and the people
Yeah.
who come, because if Bruce can do it, I can do it. If Wade can do it, I can do it. If Maggie can do it, I can do it. And that's the story. Now, if a person comes to the program with the belief that I already know everything and I might pick up a pearl, those aren't the ones who are productive. They're not the
Yeah.
ones who really take it to the next level. People that take it to the next level are the ones who listen to people, say, how does that affect me? Just, how is this going to change my life? And I like putting people in front of an audience that when people leave, they go, I will never think about this topic the same way ever again. And to me, that's critical. That's important. If I don't have something that's going to change somebody's perspective,
Mm.
and I don't really need to be talking, I'm not just sharing a bullet list of things that you need to do the perfect veneer. That's not it.
I don't know what it was in my life that made me change my thinking on this. I encourage and I get really, really excited when my perspective is shifted. I think I'm going down the path and I know what I know. And somebody comes along and says, have you tried looking at it from this perspective? And I learned something new. It's probably the biggest dopamine hit I get. I am so thrilled. But my hack has been, in order to get me in that mindset, especially going anywhere, I'm learning anything. What problem am I solving? Instead of thinking about my career track or, anything that's kind of sitting in the ego place, it's what problem am I solving? And when we go into talking about Investment Grade Practice Summit and the Seller Readiness Summit, both of those things, how in your mind have you shifted that curriculum? I mean, I know we need to give credit to Victoria Peterson and all of the
Oh,
presenters there, because that's a
unbelievable.
whole other host of presenters. But what are some of the things that you feel we do an exceptional job at helping people be able to have more of a soft landing and prepare?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, knowledge is power,
Mhm.
if you look at it that way, and if you actually do the things that, it's kind of sad. People buy books and self-help stuff and they never read them, but they bought them because of the infomercial. Well, for us, seller readiness it is getting you ready to sell at some point. It may not be 50, it may be 15 years from now.
Right.
But if you're at a point where you're focusing on being ready, and then what ends up happening is you don't know what the offer is going to be until you get it. You don't know
Mhm.
what your value is until you get it. But we can accelerate that. We can actually let you know what your business is worth today and what it will be worth in 4 years and what you can expect to get from that business. Whereas most of us, we seller readiness, I'm ready to sell when I'm tired and I'm over, I'm done. But that's
Yeah.
that's that's why 95% of dentists can't retire at their pre-retirement lifestyle. And that's sad. So we're actually both programs. The investment grade practice is building your practice so that it is ready to sell. Seller readiness is let's get together all the things that we need to get together so that it can be a smooth transition. And that is nobody's teaching it. I mean,
No.
who's teaching that are the 1,600 private equity groups that are coming in trying to buy your business, and they're telling you what your value is. Well, that's pretty stupid. That'd be like somebody, you want to sell your house and somebody else tells you what it's worth, and I'm like, oh no, this house is worth XYZ. But that's where seller readiness, that's where investment grade practices can make your journey much better and much more predictable. Because when you retire, you want to go. I mean, I was in Cabo for 2 weeks. Just got back last week. I'm busy with private equity groups now and working over the next 3 to 4 weeks, but I'm going to go down again to Cabo for a week. I'm going to spend a little time down in Key West. I'm traveling. I'm living my life, and I'm able to do that because of the preparation that we did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And so most of us don't think about it until it's time to retire. I'm telling you, let's think about it now. Not that you're ready to retire, but let's do it so that you're predictable. Let's do it so that you know where you're headed, because there's always a lot of security in it.
That made me think of, Bruce, a lot of times with people that I look up to and I aspire to, and I know this has got to be the same for you people, everybody listening right now, you've got to be on that same mindset. You always seem to me, Bruce, like you're one step ahead. Like, and that makes it fun because it gamifies it. So if I want to be a Bruce Baird, I'm always like, man, that guy is one step ahead. And it's because of you preparing back and that allows you that space and that runway. Maybe that gives you that freedom too, to be constantly innovative and thinking about the future that way.
Yeah, it's been really fun for me. Cynthia has told me, she goes, why are you watching that video on printing technology? And, why spend Monday, all day Monday, really researching AI in dentistry? Why? Because I don't know, because I really want to know how AI is going to affect dentistry, because I don't want to find out after the fact. I'd like to kind of know where it's headed. And are there things that maybe I can do to help it get here quicker, if it's something that's of value? So when I don't know, I'm always trying to find ways to do things easier. I tell Cynthia I'm the laziest man in the world, and she laughs at me, but I like finding better ways of doing things. Just because somebody says this is the way to do it, that doesn't resonate with me. What resonates with me is, well, okay, and you're amazing at doing what it is you do, but I wonder if there's an easier way of doing it. And I've always been that way from the time I was in dental school. I've always just looked at a situation and said, okay, well, that's awesome, but how can we do it easier? Or easier is probably not the right word. How can we do it more effectively? How can we do it, whatever that word is? And that's just been my mantra for, I don't know, 68 years. I never really look at things saying, well, that's the way it's done. I need to learn to do it that way.
Yeah.
You have to know how to do it. So you learn. And then you say, well, gosh, I bet you there's a better way of doing it. And so I don't know. That's always been my mantra.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. Chad and I are here every week thanks to our community of listeners just like you, and we'd love your help. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.